Uh, my occupation is a lot of things. Well, first and foremost, I'm the chief executive officer of Imosis, and Imosis is a virtual reality agency. Essentially, we build immersive experiences with virtual reality software and augmented reality as well, technically. If you are unfamiliar with what VR is, it's where you put on a headset like the HC Vive or Oculus Rift, and it looks like you're transported to another world. The technical definition is it's a computer generated 3D environment that you can interact with and explore. So, for example, it's like we could write something to where when you put on the headset, it looks like you're on the planet Mars. And not only do you see Mars all around you, but also you can interact and explore. So you can walk around Mars or the environment that we set up. You can do things like, for example, pick up rocks and throw them. That's the interaction factor. So we build these experiences for a variety of businesses and use cases. We've done work in areas like gaming, trading, healthcare, and education. Um, I've always been a really big fan of technology. I mean, that's why I entered college to do software engineering. I think that technology is what will enable us to create the biggest impacts at scale. The beauty of technology, particularly software, is that you can build something once and then expand it to the rest of the nation or even the globe if you want to. And that's what we aim to do with some of our technologies. On the consulting side of things, we help others make that impact. Um, Sort of. Well, I mean, when we first started, it was like back in 2016, and at the time, I was just personally interested in emerging technologies. There's a lot. I mean, but the two that I focused on back then were artificial intelligence and virtual reality. Not that I was involved with a project back then that kind of sparked the rest of the events, but it was just I was super interested. So the first thing I did was I started two college organizations that were focused on education for AI and VR, respectively. And it turned out that I wasn't the only one who was really interested, and then these clubs grew to hundreds of members within the first year. And at a certain point, it becomes natural to where, well, you know, we already do a lot of talks and events to promote this technology. Well, why not build projects with it too? It's one thing to talk about the technology, it's another thing to actually build it and demonstrate to the community that this is what's actually possible. And uh, you know, one thing after another, and then my one of my officers back then and I decided to do VR projects. We wanted to keep the intellectual property to ourselves, so we spun out Emosis, and we've gone from there. Uh, ooh, it's taken me to a lot of places. I mean, it's definitely changed my life. Just these 2 years have changed me more than the other however many so years have, honestly. And I think that uh, we're always learning. I think that's one thing. We've grown a lot as not just technologists, but also business people. Running a company is completely different than trying to build some kind of application, for example. And we saw a lot of good success this year. We hit six-figure revenues this year, and if anything, it's taught us that you know sometimes tenacity really can pay off as long as you put in the work. You work not just hard but also smart. It took us a lot of learning, but we experimented a bunch and just pivoted to wherever we need to. And this year was when we saw things take off. Oh wow. Okay, so when you first start out, it's really hard because nothing's really established yet. I mean, as a company grows, it becomes, if you do it right, then it should become more or less more automated because you establish a team in place, you ramp them up to take care of whatever needs to, so you don't have to. You establish processes so things can become repeated. But at the beginning, you have none of that. You don't have a team and you don't have processes. So that's kind of one of the struggles of entrepreneurship is that especially if you're starting out for the first time. You have to do everything yourself. I was really fortunate to have a wonderful co-founder who's still with us today. That would be the first thing I suggest, is that if you can find an amazing co-founder who's not just competent but also uh, completely committed to your business, that would be the first key to take a lot of work off of your shoulders. With school, it's like, I mean, well, you have to make a sacrifice somewhere, right? You only have 24 hours in a day. Um, so the thing with balancing school and other commitments is that you have to understand that as a business owner, if you are actually serious about starting and growing a business that actually works, you have to put in a lot of work. I mean, there's no shortcut around that whatsoever. So you have to make a conscious decision to prioritize what needs to be prioritized. And when a situation comes up where you only have enough time to do one or the other, well, I mean, you have to sacrifice something. You can't just make time out of nothing. So in my case, I think I was relatively fortunate. I mean, I've always been really good at taking tests and like memorizing things super quickly. So I mean, personally, I would just I don't know. I would don't take this as like the role model example, but what I honestly did was I would like take out my laptop and work during classes. And I'd only listen if like I hear something like, oh, and this will be on the exam, then I like take note really quickly and go back to work. Um, if there's like a test or something that comes up, normally I'll study for like a few hours either the day before or the day of, which is it's not a good habit for learning purposes. But I mean, I had different priorities, of course. But just try to find a way to be more efficient with your time, how you spend it. Cut things that are unnecessary. Just make it work. There's always a way. I think I have two answers to that. Well, let's see. Hmm. Okay, I'll give you my eccentric answer. I don't think this one's really been told too much. So, um, one of my biggest passions, just me personally, is time, because I think that time is one of the most resources that are taken for granted the most. You can earn money, you can get food, you can get water. At least now you can. I don't know about thousands of years later, but time is not the case. Time will flow on and on. Um, it's not going to it's not going to warn you that, hey, you're wasting your life here. You should get on to whatever you actually want to do. Things like that. No, it's very passive. It just passes by. And if you don't take your time seriously, if you don't do what you actually want to do in life, what makes you happy, then sooner or later you're going to be like 70, 80, 90, whatever, in your deathbed, and your family's around you. Your breath is drawing to a close, show's over, curtains down, and in that one moment, it's like, what are you going to think? Are you going to think, oh, I wish I stayed at the office longer? I'd like you to name one person who's thought something like that on their deathbed. I would bet a lot of money that that would be zero. Um, so I try to think about that situation and think about what are the possible what ifs I could be asking in that situation. What are the possible regrets I could be having? Um, and I realized that for me to actually be happy, I need to be in control of my time. If I want to all of a sudden drop everything I do and just focus on raising my kids and being with my family for the rest of my life, I want to be able to make that decision and not be controlled by anything like some company I'm working for or my financial situation. I don't want any of that. And I know I would definitely regret it if I don't have control of my time. So what motivates me to work so hard now is, if we can actually succeed and someday make it big. I know that's a general statement, but that would essentially allow me to get my time back, and that's ultimately what inspires me, is to have freedom of my choices. In 5 years, well, I mean, hopefully I'm still at this company unless we exit successfully before then. I think no matter where I'm at, whether I'm here or I'm at a new startup, or somewhere else, I think that um, I'll always be trying to make some kind of difference to solve some kind of problem. I think that um, I'm really fortunate to be in this kind of situation with these experiences and this foundation in not just technology but also business. And I think that there's an inherent responsibility to use that for some kind of good. So I think in 5 years, no matter where I'm at, I would try to be using my experiences, my resources, my talents to try to help make the world a better place. However, so. Okay. Um, well, first of all, I would say that this goes for everybody, that uh, successful people wouldn't be where they are if they didn't first have their mentors on the way. I mean, um, I know that we would be nowhere if it wasn't for our first mentors and our advisors who invested their time and energy into this company. So I would say that we owe so much to our mentors. If you want to start being an entrepreneur, go find a mentor. That's the first thing I always tell new entrepreneurs, is that figure out, make sure you're solving a real problem and that your solution at least makes sense. Try to go find mentors who've been in your space, because they can help you move quicker and better. Um, there's that, and yeah, just work hard. If you want to stay in touch, we are Mimosas. I don't think there's a sign back here. Nope, there's not. You can find us at immosas.com, immosis.com, and we're also around on social media. If you want to keep up to date with me personally, I think all of my social media handles are the same. It's Brian Q Hoang, BrianQHoang. So, thanks for watching.
I pull up in Lexus like it's '07. I just hit a lick, I gotta hit the next one.